Everyone, it's Mr. Rops, and this particular video is going to talk about the quadratic formula. That is different than a quadratic equation. A quadratic equation is anything that looks like this scenario here, whereas the quadratic formula is this big giant formula which solves quadratic equations. Okay, so don't get them confused. This is the quadratic formula. And it is a wonderful formula that you should all know off by heart, just so that you can remember it forever. And one of the things that I know is I have a song to help you out, and so I'm going to expect to hear you sing it. And then here's how it goes. You're going to hear me singing on live YouTube TV. Maybe it's going to go viral soon. Here we go. Here's the song go. It's to a tune like Frere Jacques or Brother John. It's a very familiar tune, but it goes minus b, plus or minus square root, b squared minus 4ac, b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a, all over 2a. That is a catchy tune. You sing that song, you'll never forget the quadratic formula. And I'll be singing it for you tomorrow in class. All right, so here's our quadratic formula. And what's the purpose of this quadratic formula, you may ask? Well, the purpose is that this quadratic formula solves any quadratic. If factoring doesn't work, quadratic formula will work. If you don't have a calculator, quadratic formula. This solves any quadratic equation, and it solves it. So it's really powerful that it solves everything, but the downside, it is messy. And people are prone to mistakes. So let us go and take a look at our first problem. We're going to have to use our quadratic formula. But here's the reason why. Oh, here we are, chutes and ladders. So the quadratic formula basically is the path that takes us all the way through all of these. We bypass every single ladder. We go every long way to get to the end. Factoring is a technique that if I'm going to factor, and I'll do that with a crayon, I'll do my green crayon. Factoring does things like this. You go up some ladders, and then you come around, you go up some, and then you come along, and you go up some. That's the idea of factoring. It goes up faster than regular. Graphing is even a faster path. I would say you hit every single ladder possible, and so on and so forth. Whereas a quadratic formula takes the long and slow path. But it is sure to get you there. All right, so here we go. First thing we're going to do, we're going to find the roots of this particular equation. Roots is another way of asking just to solve for x, or find the zeros, or find the roots, or find the x-intercepts, or find the solutions. These are all words to mean the same thing, and you should make a note about those 4 different ways to ask the same question. And we're going to do it graphically. So I make my little graph here. And I'm going to go to my calculator this time. I go to my calculator, I type it into y equals, which I've done already. And then I'm going to go zoom to number 6, which is a standard window. And there is my graph as such. Well, it's a little hard to see, so there's another zoom setting I can use. I can go zoom number 4, which zooms in a little bit. And so now I'm a little bit closer and I can see the numbers a bit better. This one here looks to be like -1. And that looks to be, I don't know, 0.5 negative. So +1 and -0.5. So in order to do it, we do one at a time. I'll start off with the left one. I'm going to do 0. And the calculator asks me the question. To the left of this value, well, I know -1 is left of that value. And then I'm going to say to the right of this value, well, I know 0 for sure is. I'm going to guess -0.5. And lo and behold, I have a value of -0.2. And so here's my graph. This value is x is equal to -0.2. And this is y is equal to 5x squared minus 4x minus 1. And so x equals -0.2 is the first answer. I go to my calculator to find the next one. I think it's going to be +1, but I go 0, number 2. Left bound, I'm going to choose 0. My right bound, I'll choose, 2. And my guess is going to be 1. And indeed it is correct. And so this value here x is equal to 1, and so I have x equal to 1 as my solution. And so here is my solutions using the calculator. Now I can do this with the quadratic formula as well. And if I put in what the quadratic formula says, oh, that's not the one I was looking for. If I take the quadratic formula, and if you write it down often, you will also help you remember it. So actually, I'll just do it by memory here. I'll go x equals minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And when I'm doing this, I can clearly see that a is the number in front of x squared because it's ax squared plus bx plus c. A is 5. B is -4. The coefficient, the sign goes with the value. And C is -1. So now it's just a matter of plugging the values in. So it's x is equal to minus, and I'd like to put this in parentheses, and -4. This here is a common mistake. People miss this negative sign. Plus or minus b squared, and I'm going to put this in parentheses. Again, people miss the negative sign and they don't put in parentheses. Put it in parentheses. Minus 4 times the 5 times the -1. All of this is over 2 times 5. Well, now I'm going to simplify. -4 is a +4, plus or minus. -4 squared is 16. And now I have 4 times 5 is 20. 2 negatives make a positive, so plus 20 over 2 times 5 is 10. Continuing through here, I can see that this is 4 plus or minus the square root of 36 over 10, which is equal to 4 plus or minus, well, that is 6 over 10, which is, I have two solutions here. One of them is going to be 4 plus 6 is 10 over 10, which is equal to 1. And the other is going to be 4 minus 6, which is -2 over 10, which is -1/5. So here are my two values for x. And so I can do it by quadratic formula, and it's going to always work, but I have to do a lot of steps to do it and make sure I don't make any careless mistakes. I can also use polysimultaneous number 2. Now, as you're doing this video, you should be pausing this all the time and trying it yourself. Try polysimultaneous and check what you get. All right, so we're back. I'm going to apps for polysimultaneous. I'm looking for number 2. You might have to find it on a different number. And I'm going to do polyroot finder number 1. It is to the degree 2. And I'm going to go next. And I'm going to put the coefficients in of 5. -4 and -1. These are A, B, and C. The ones I've written over here. A, B, C. Enter that in. Then I'm going to solve. And again, I can see that x is 1 and x is -0.2. So again, I got graphing, quadratic formula, and polysimultaneous. And then the fourth way I could do it is by factoring. I have 5x squared minus 4x minus 1 is equal to 0. If I'm going to factor this leading coefficient is not 1, so I have to do the big giant x. 5x times -1 is -5x squared. This middle term goes here. So now what numbers multiply to get -5? Add to get -4. So that's going to be a -5x and a plus 1x. Moving it to the box. 5x squared goes here. -1 goes down here. You should pause this and try it yourself. And these values go here. Taking out common factors, I get a 5x. This is the boss sign, I get a plus 1. This is just an x, and this is a -5. Oh, no, it's not. It's a -1 that I pull out. and negative 1. And so my factors are 5x plus 1 times x minus 1 equal to 0. Which then says by the null factor rule, this number could be 0. Or this number is 0. So x is 1, or 5x is equal to negative 1, or x is equal to negative 1 divided by 5. And so we have our two values. We've solved it 4 different ways. Quadratic formula, you can see, takes some time, but you always get the right answer. Here, it takes some more time, but again, you get the right answer. You have to be very careful. If you have technology, these ways are very, very nice.